What happens is you've got like here Pluto is orbiting, and it's going to orbit, and imagine that it's going to come around like this and come over here. I know it's kind of crazy drawing, but just kind of like pretend you can imagine. Meanwhile, the Earth is in its orbit like this, and they're kind of at an angle to each other, and this angle is its obliquity. It's a kind of a fancy term, the obliquity of the orbital planes. It just means that they're kind of like they're at an angle to each other. So let me erase that and go here to the next slide. So this is a little bit of a different view of it. And what I want to point out here is, so this is again, Pluto over here, the Earth right here. And where the orbital planes intersect, you know, even if this green ring is going to be smaller, actually, the reality is it's going to be much smaller. It's inside. They don't necessarily have to touch, but where they would touch if they were to pass by each other, right here. This is what we're talking about when we say the nodes of the planets. And the moon does the same thing. We could imagine that this is the moon, and this is the Earth, right? And then it would have the same thing where the orbital plane of one body intersects with the orbital plane of another body. That is what forms the nodes of the two together. So nodes represent a relational experience between two orbital bodies, and where the one planet goes below the other plane, this is called the descending node, and where the planet then goes above. And we're thinking, and when I say above or below, I recognize that, you know, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe doesn't have an orientation of above or below, but we're using above or below as the north pole of the sun is what we think of as above, and the south pole of the sun we think of as below. So that's how we're determining above or below from this standpoint. So when we talk about the descending node, it's where the planet is north of it's north of the middle of the sun, and then it drops down, the orbital plane kind of drops down. So anyways, that's where we see these nodes. Now, right now, the nodes of Pluto are in Capricorn. It's where the south node is at. This is the symbol for the south node, this little upside down horseshoe with little kind of like loops here. And the north node, again, this is the symbol of the north node. The north node of Pluto is in Cancer. And now a lot of the planets' nodes are in the Cancer Capricorn axis right now. Sometimes they vary outside of that. But Pluto is one of the, I know astronomers call Pluto the dwarf planet now, but it was a planet. They called it a planet for a while, but we're just talking about like one of these, long cycle bodies that are orbiting us and that are within our ability to kind of like understand the timeline for it. I mean, Pluto orbits every 250 years. And so these nodes represent kind of an extreme evolutionary points in the ongoing development of socioeconomic situations here on planet Earth. So this Capricorn Cancer axis is what I'm talking about. And this is what has been, the nodes of Pluto have been in Cancer and Capricorn since 444 and will be there till 2741. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the nodes of Pluto being in Cancer and Capricorn. All right. The next thing I want to point to here actually is, let me just advance the slide. So the ascending node. This is just kind of like a little write-up talking about the archetype of the ascending node. This is the portal of emergence. The ascending or north node is the archetype of the great intake. It occurs where a body rises from the southern or lower latitudes into the northern or upper hemisphere of the ecliptic, symbolizing an upward surge towards consciousness and manifestation. In Vedic and Tibetan traditions, this is the head of the dragon, Rahu or Rahula, a point of voracious appetite and ambition that lacks a body to digest what it consumes. It represents an evolutionary hunger for new experience and uncharted territory. So this is the north node, and right now the north node of Pluto is in Cancer. And Cancer is a sign that many of us that have been studying the zodiac recognize as a sign that symbolizes the desire for safety, for security, for being at home, for staying inside. That's not to say that people that are Cancer, they have strong Cancer placements, always need to stay inside. But the archetype of Cancer is a crab that has a shell and is, soft on the inside and needs to be protected, and, scurries to stay hidden. And, there's this kind of Cancer, archetypal understanding based upon the animal, the zooidea that is the totem of that zodiac sign. So Cancer represents this kind of like need for safety and security, and this is what the world is hungering for. That's how we can think of the Pluto North Node in Cancer. The archetype of hegemonic power is utilizing the craving for safety and security to further its evolutionary incentives through the different world orders. So that's kind of what we're talking about with that ascending node. The descending node is the archetype of the sacred surrender. It marks the point where a body sinks below the ecliptic plane, symbolizing a return to the roots, the past, and the collective unconscious. It's the mastered past. This is the tail of the dragon, or Ketu, representing past karma and the innate mastery. It is the dominant hand, what is easy, habitual, and naturally mastered through previous cycles of existence. So again, in Capricorn, we're seeing this planet of this Capricornian experience being manifested as what is habitual, the power structures, the structures of things, the rising of power, the dominance of authority and authoritarianism is in many ways a Capricornian experience. And then last, I think I have one more slide on this that I want to bring up here. So the south node of Pluto in Capricorn is the collective hegemonic grave. It's a multi-millennial immersion into the rigid structures of power, hierarchy, and systemic control that has defined the human experience from 444 CE and will continue until 2741 CE in the archetypal synthesis of nodal movement. If the ascending node is the breath of resurrection, so the ascending node is where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that safety. We're trying to get to that security. And notice this, all of this stuff, all the border control, trying to expel immigrants, talking about the criminals and the murderers. This is all to play on people's need for safety. None of this is playing on people's desire for freedom. There's something strong about the fear of not being safe. It's animalistic. From, all animals want to be safe, dogs, cats, raccoons, humans, we all want to be safe. We search out the places where we're going to feel safe and secure, our homes, our dens. We find small places and holes in the ground to, keep ourselves safe. This is a fundamental need of biological existence, this need for safety, and manipulating the emotional need for that because of the North Node in Cancer. We are highly susceptible as societies to the idea that our society is not going to be safe, and we respond to that in ways that are predictable to the hegemonic power systems. All of this, when we look at the Star Wars expansion of empire, it's about safety and security, prosperity, making things work smoothly. We don't want to rock the boat. We want things to stay in a way that, isn't scary, right? And that is what we are trying to, even if we're not conscious of it, that is what the North Node of Pluto is talking about. It's talking about the global societal movement towards safety in a way that expresses the willingness to surrender freedom to acquire safety. And that is how the hegemonic expression arises, persists, and grows. And we're going to see that continue to grow over the next several hundred years. And that's why I say it's not about one leader. It's not about Trump or Xi or Putin or Carney, or it's not about any of these individual leaders. And it's not even about the individual nations. Those are the vehicles through which this hegemonic archetype, which is, we can think of the hegemonic archetype of Pluto as a real living entity within the minds of sentient beings on the planet today, and that this archetypal expression, this emanation of Plutonic power and hegemonic control is arising and strengthening across the world because of this need, this evolutionary need for safety, as you know, in the willingness to surrender freedom. Right? We think of the when we think of the Cancer Capricorn axis, right? That is in a square to the Aries Libra axis, right? Which represents freedom and harmony, freedom and equality, freedom and balance, initiation and cooperation, individualism and relationship.